and welcome back with another tutorial here with Puppy Ray. Version 9 of PD Howler is almost ready. We are probably going to ship it in about a week, early to mid-September. And I'm going to use, I think this is release candidate 2. And we have also a few new features there, but let's dive into just one aspect of it. In fact, this one here is running rendering over 1200 frames, so that's going to take a little while. I have in fact another rendering going on here on this one as well. So I have 2 sessions of Dog Waffle running, and it's not everything can be shared or can be used in that case. I've noticed a little challenge to store custom brushes, for instance, when you have multiple copies of Dog Waffle running at the same time. But for the most part, it's nice to be able to run a background rendering and still do some other work in another session that I've been able to use so far. So I'm going to launch a third instance. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM on this machine, so each of those could use up to about 4 gigs. It's a 32-bit program. But I can probably run 3 or 4 sessions here at the same time. And one thing that you'll notice though is that it's going to notice that there is a new instance of the same program already running. So when you go to the task manager, you'll notice that there is Dog Waffle, and here the new Dog Waffle, and you can do all sorts of things to stop them if they are actually leftovers that did not shut down right, but in this case, of course, I will not stop them because these are doing the renderings in the background. Performance wise, we are pretty much saturated at 100%. It's running in low priority though. I've right clicked under the details view. I've right-clicked the priority here to bring it down to lower priority. So this one here is down at low or lower than normal, and that will allow you to keep the interactivity somewhat better for the programs that you are working with still interactively. So I'm going to continue on this program. And one thing I'd like to do is load. I want to talk about how to set up the background sky for use in Puppy Ray, because it's tempting to use an image that's the same dimension as what you use for your terrain, right? So if you, for instance, you start and render something like a Mandelbrot and you say that's going to be your terrain, maybe you'll zoom in a little bit, I don't know, something like this. Okay, so we'll use this as our terrain, and this might look funky and really nice also as the background sky in the skydome. But the thing is, it's going to be a little bit distorted if we keep it in this shape, because what's happening is that what you see here in the middle is essentially going to be the pole at the top, at the zenith, and anything around it here is going to be sort of the horizon. Unless I got this totally wrong. Maybe up here is what the pole is, and it's going to be the horizon all over. No matter what, it's not the same amount of wrapping that you get. What I mean is that you may get from the, let's say if this is the horizon line and it goes up to the pole to the top, it might actually do that. You have 90 degrees to go, from the zenith to the north pole, to the pole, or from the horizon to the zenith. You got 90 degrees. You got 90 degrees going down as well. So I don't know. Maybe the whole thing is 180 degrees. Maybe it's all 90. I don't know. Maybe the horizon is actually portrayed at the bottom, and it goes up to the pole here. So that's only 180 degrees, whereas sideways, it's doing the full turn around you along the horizon. That's 360 degrees. So you're going to have at least 2 times more spread in the horizontal than in the vertical. It could be even 4 times, because I off the top of my head, I don't remember if it's going vertically from the bottom here, this being the horizon, or if the horizon line is seen here. or whether that's the South Pole. I don't know. It's probably the horizon to the north, to the zenith up here. And either way, so we have at least 2 times stretch, and we may have 4 times. And so if you have some sort of a shape that you want to recognize, let's say a square in here, that pole, skydome is not going to show it as a square. It's going to be squeezed, either flat or wide, tall, and that's because we're not using the pixels in the same amount of angular space. Right, we have these pixels here. It's the same number of pixels as we have here if we have a square. I don't think we have a square exactly here, but if we start with something, whatever it is, if it's something like this, you have approximately the same number of pixels here as you have vertically, and yet you're going to spread them over 360 degrees versus spreading them just over 180 degrees, or worse, over just 90 degrees. Actually, it's not worse, it's better because you get more definition, but still it's more of a distortion, more of a squeeze one axis or the other. And so the thing to be aware of is that if you're doing if you want to load your own custom brush or your custom skydome, you should prepare it for that squeeze by unsqueezing it first, meaning you load an image that is not square, but instead is much wider than it is tall. So for instance, you might try 2 times wider than tall, something like 1024 horizontal number of pixels and 512 vertical pixels. Make it even higher definition if you want, 4000 horizontal, 2000 vertical, something like that. And even more, you could possibly do a wide angle view, some sort of a panoramic picture. Take a picture with your smartphone and make it a wide panoramic so that you have a number of pictures taken next to each other horizontally as you swipe the camera sideways, and you end up getting a very wide picture. In fact, I did that the other day, so let's see if we can go and grab that. I need to go find it first. Let me get right back to that. Alright, so here we are, and this was some sort of a sunset sky that I took a picture of, swiping the camera. Hold on, this is rotated. Let me go and rotate this back. There, rotated clockwise by 90 degrees, and there we go. It's not a perfect picture. It's got some light poles, some street lamps, some parking stuff. It's got a little bit of horizon maybe I should get rid of. But it's good enough probably just to get the point across and see the type of pictures that you might want to use. You notice it's a very wide picture, and in fact I have some that are even wider than that, and that might be even more suitable. Here's one that I did in a very similar technique, which is to use my smartphone and then just do a horizontal swipe. So I had one picture taken in this area, another one in this area, another one. I think I have about 5 or 6 of them tiled next to each other. And so that creates a nice panoramic of the entire sequence, which makes for a very detailed, high resolution detailed picture. Not this one here, for some reason. I must have scaled it down to a lower resolution, but still, if you look at the info on the image after you load it, image info, this one's 4000 pixels wide, and the height is just 461. Let's have a look at another one. Let's open perhaps another one of those sky domes. I have this one here that I took yesterday. We had some cloudy conditions along the horizon, and let me rotate this one as well. Rotate clockwise. There you go. Zoom out a little bit. Yep. So there you see oh, a little glitch here. I must have shaken my hand, must have gone upward a little bit as I took the next picture, but it's basically tiling side by side, and you might want to perhaps just grab a portion of it. Let's say maybe I'm going to just focus on this one, and so we can see it better, I'm going to show the overlay mode. There you go. Let's go and crop to that, crop to selection. And so here we go. Maybe we can increase the contrast a little bit. Expanding the dynamic range usually will find darker the darkest spot and the brightest spot, and if they are not as bright and as dark as possible, it will expand the dynamic range. And then at some point we might even do more. I mean, one of the fun things to do with Dog Waffle is to explore, for instance in this case, the photographic filters for soft contrast improvement. And you can see perhaps more detail or less detail. Keep it a little bit blurry if it's going to be in the backdrop, right? You want to, for instance, in Puppy Ray, if you're going to have this as the backdrop, you want to keep it a little bit blurry so that it doesn't take away the attention on the foreground, away from the foreground, that is. And then something else you might want to do is give it something like, where do we go for that? Make it seamless. So there is a make seamless option here, and basically that will look like this. You won't have the cut too much, and then so now you have the top here bring back the bottom. Now that's not a good example to do the make seamless, because you really want the sky to stay blue at the top, where the zenith is going to be. You don't want it to turn back and wrap down to the earth colors on the ground. So that was not exactly a smart choice. Let's undo that and go back to, well, you know what, we could do a make seamless just sideways. Now that's not something you do with this. What you do in that case, you actually shift it sideways and blur out the center line where the transition is visible. So the manual approach to making seamless, or a manual approach, would be to do something like this here. Let's see, transform, shift, and just work on the shift here on the horizontal. You could put in the exact number, or you could go right here and just drag it sideways. And if you accidentally shift it a little bit down, you see the shift value here on the y-axis. You can always put that back to 0 so that it's not actually shifting in that direction. If you know the exact what shall we call it, the exact dimension of your image, you can also put that number here, or half of that. Anyway, what you want to do is blur this section here just along this vertical cut line here. You want to OK that, and then we'll need to basically blur this. There's actually a couple of ways to fix this now to make it seamless. One is the very simple approach is to simply select a portion of this here and then say blur that. You might even blur the selection first, and there's a Gaussian blur or the box filter for that, and with that you have a blurry transition that's going to be maximum enabled in the middle, and you can now apply filters like the blur filter for a Gaussian blur, and have that one blur that transition of the sky. This works well if the sky is already kind of blurry, or if there's a lot of noise in there in the first place, and you will not notice too much of that transition. There's a couple of other ways to create this transition, or to get rid of that seam and that transition. And one that I would recommend perhaps also is, so after you've blurred that transition, let's do the Gaussian blur this time. So we blur this alpha selection. And what we'll do is we'll use the fill mode under the image menu, and there's a clone or feature removal fill and clone fill, so these can be useful too. Feature removal, probably, yeah, that's going to be kind of getting rid of the inside there. Now it's bringing it down to a grayish, in this case that's not, well, actually it might be kind of okay. Really it varies a little bit by content. You might find some other techniques. Let's undo that and perhaps see the clone fill. That would be useful if you have a portion next to that with another cloud that you'd like to fill in here. Alright, something like this area here, you can have that pulled in so it gets kind of cloned into that area, and perhaps at that point afterwards you can do another set of blurring and transition that as well there. So go something like this here. And if you want to do two blurry transitions and get rid of seams at the same time, you can use the shift key for this one and then this one. So you have a first selection, and with the shift key down you have another selection, and then both of these could be blurred with the selection key down here. Where is it? Gaussian blur alpha. Let's go and blur that alpha selection a little bit, like so, not too much. And then at that point we can again, different ways to transition or blur or get rid of that seam. You can do the feature removal. You can do One I would perhaps also try is a blur that does have a little bit of a sideways node. So I mean the general blur right here, the Gaussian blur might work. The motion blur might be interesting too. Give that a try. That will give it a little bit of a horizontal tearing, depending on how much you blur this. Right, but for instance, if you have a camera motion in when you took the picture, if there is a little bit of a sideways motion to it all, or if you want to convey some sort of a wind direction blowing these things apart and distorting the shape of those clouds, that's one thing you can do too, is to add a little bit of that blurry distortion in just that one direction, that one axis direction. Put it to good quality and render that, and then get rid of the alpha selection. And so here we have a sky that's not going to be abruptly showing too much of a seam like we had it before. And so when you in the big picture, when you look at this one here, which is not touched up, that's already quite blurry, and there's a lot of high velocity winds in high atmosphere, and that's why it's all blurry like that. So you could always at that point also go back to yet another filter, like the photographic again, the soft contrast improvement, and soon enough you will just not see where that touch-up, where that seam was removed. And then once you have done that, make sure you bring it back to the well, actually you really don't have to, but because what you see here, this section here on the left side is really faithfully reproduced or continuing on the other side here, because we did that shift to send it sideways. We can still bring it backwards if we need to, if there is some sort of I don't know, maybe a bright spot like the sun here that we have placed exactly where we need it, so that during the rendering in PuppyRay we'll actually see it, depending on where the camera is looking. So we can go and bring this back, and that would be under the shift tool again, and it's actually applying the same amount of shift we had before. We might want to go negative that, negative 881, to bring it back to where it was originally in the first place. And so there we go. So that image we would typically want to load in as a skydome. If we want to use it as a skydome, we will want to put this into the custom brush. Now I'm running 2 other sessions. I don't think I can actually load this into the custom brush, because that's still running in a conflict mode with the other 2 sessions of Dog Waffle. Normally you will not see that scenario, so it's not an issue. But I mean, one thing you can do is you can store it. Nope, I don't have that. Oh, because it's not a custom brush, of course not. So I can store it as, I can grab it as a custom brush, and then I would store it as a custom brush. Oh, it is already. I don't need to store it really. I just need to make it the current brush. Store it is one thing, but I'm making it a custom brush is what I really need at this point. So let's say now we go back to the original shape of the image. I don't know, what was it, about yep. Let's see, something like 700. Let's make it a square, 640 by 480, 800 by 800 there. And that will be our ground elevation map. So we'll go and render, oh, I don't know, let's give it something funky here, a grid, bumpy toy. Let's give it a bumpy toy. And a little bit of self-displacement, so let's give it some. I find this really recursive, spiky pearl in there. I find this one really interesting when you want to make sand dunes with the self-displacement, and then of course you may need to change the coloring of the let's try this, but probably not the right amount, the right scale. There. I'm not too happy with the color map though. I need something more Earth-like. So let's go and get it value, or let's see if we have some presets. Maybe under the gunmetals. Yeah, let's use that. One of those. Okay, so we have something funky. That's all I promised. Right? Let's go and use that as the terrain, and maybe that one also we want to make seamless, and this one in all directions. So we'll go to the image menu and make seamless right here. Okay, that. and we'll copy that, we'll keep that as a color map. So for that we will simply go and copy that to the swap image, the swap buffer, and now we know we use this as the elevation map. Now there's a couple of things we can do here is normalize it, expanding the dynamic range, maybe turn it really into a grayscale. I mean, it almost looks like a grayscale, but we know it's not, and we could get slightly different results on that if we expose it through a different color lens. So let's get our grayscale going here. And so this is the elevation map. We know we can switch to the swap map to see the colors that's there, and we have the brush, the custom brush is still there. I can enable it in the PRV, the preview. I can see it in full opacity, and then you get a good idea of what that skydome should look like, and that's where we'll keep it in the custom brush. So now let's go and shift this over a little bit to the right, and go to filter, transform, and puppy ray. And so now here we have our elevation map. Let's go and reduce the scale a little bit. Yep, you can see it right there as expected. Let's go give it a little bit of elevation, scale it up, and perhaps bring it up closer as well. And let's see what else can we do. The fog, if you reduce the fog, it will look like much foggier. And if you look down on it, it almost looks like ground fog. But the most important thing is that we want the skydome now to look, to come from our custom brush. So here's that skydome. Let's go and choose ours right there. There it is, beautiful. And that skydome, of course, is going all around it. You don't see the seam. And we have a almost perfect zenith there. We didn't do much work to make it seamless at the top. We could have done that too, because there's a little bit of different tint. You can see it go from a light blue to a darker blue all around it as it wraps. But that's all really nice, and we can go and perhaps now lift it up, also bring the terrain up a little bit so that we are seeing the, let's see, the camera can go up above that. So we're seeing the terrain kind of reach the horizon, and you know, all sorts of other types of worlds we can create with that if we just let the camera go up high enough and the terrain scale high enough too. There's really high peaks there, and we are now, oh, let's go and actually position ourselves above it, but then also make the angle wider, the camera angle. So I need to open more details here and make this maybe a 1.2, 1.5. That's going to be a nice wide angle look. Let's position ourselves somewhere where we can see a lot of the data on the terrain, and then just look around in the sky, and we have our own skydome right there. And there it is. So maybe we can find a spot where the sun was actually shining on those clouds really brightly, and then we arrange the light source to go there as well. You can change that. You could do that perhaps from a top-down view first, so you can really kind of predict and see where that light is going, or you could increase the global illumination. That's another parameter right there. And then of course do the rendering. I'm going to do a quick one here with medium quality and render that. And then once you've got that done, you can also go back to adding some more. You know, if they have this very bright spot in the cloud here, maybe we need to put the sun there too. So once we're done with that, let's go to our rainbow here with the extra effect tools, and we can see the lens flares or the lightning, the nova option. Let's try the novas, and there's a couple of options here. Let's make sure we have kind of a pinkish color and a greenish color, and we'll put one right there and another one over that, and again and again. Alright, so that's basically it. I wanted to have this little tutorial showing how to work with the creation of a skydome that will not squeeze it too much sideways, up or down. You'll want to perhaps create a reference skydome to see exactly how it maps the portions of your skydome to the portions of, the portion of your image from your custom brush, to see what parts of that land up where. I think it's a spherical mapping, or maybe some cylindrical, probably a spherical mapping, but it's always good to see exactly what part of the image is actually going to end up where in the skydome, so that you know where you need to focus your effort on making it seamless and make sure there's no pole showing and no seams or anything like that. Alright, well, thanks for watching, and enjoy. I hope you like Project Dog Waffle 9 with Puppy Ray and lots of other new features.